the News Channel 5 network. This is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. It may be the holiday weekend, but politics never seems to take much time off these days on the local, state, or political scene. Here to talk about the issues today are our guests. Far away from me is Steve Gill, the political conservative commentator, and that's not a political statement, and Democratic strategist Larry Wood is next to him. Gentlemen, thank you both for being on the show today.
Good to be here.
How come I'm a conservative commentator and he's not a liberal one?
Because I'm reasonable.
And so it starts. Steve, I think the number one story that broke this week politically in Tennessee was the delay in the report cards going out all across the state for students in grades 3 through 8. The reason that it seems to have happened is because state education leaders couldn't get their work done to get the TCAP scores calculated. At least they said they couldn't. And so these report cards are going to go out late if these test scores even get factored at all. Is this a major snafu?
I think it's beyond a major snafu. I think it is a huge scandal. They clearly have the test scores. They're now trying to revise the scores because apparently they didn't turn out as well as they thought they were going to be. And I think when you look at a motivation, the state had 400 national education writers in town last week where Governor Haslam, Commissioner Huffman were touting the Tennessee miracle of what they've done with Tennessee schools. If they released test scores that showed that the results were bad, that would have been a major embarrassment.
But there were more than education writers here. You and reporters. You had other people in here this week. You had the national education secretary here,
who was patting them on the back for being so courageous in continuing ahead with a program they say works. It would have been a huge embarrassment if they had just released scores that showed that it's not working, and that's, I think, why you're seeing them now try to tweak and change the test scores after the fact.
Larry, Democrats have never been very happy with Commissioner Huffman, who heads up the education department. Neither have some of the education leaders across the state, superintendents. Is this a serious enough problem in your mind that this goes all the way to the top, that he ought to take the fall for this, maybe even step down or be asked to resign?
I think so. And I don't quickly say that about anybody holding a job, especially in the economy of the last 10 years. But for a long time, the school superintendents around the state have been very vexed, very upset with Tennessee Education Commissioner Huffman's regime. Poor communication, untimely communication, which this failure to get the grade reports out to let local school superintendent teachers get the report cards out is only the latest example. This has been a series of disasters at the top level of the state education department.
Now, Steve, what you said earlier goes beyond just we didn't get the work done. You say there's a deliberate reason they're trying to withhold these and actually trying to change the scores or change how the scores are going to be interpreted?
Well, they're saying that they are recalibrating the scores. If you're going to change a test to make it Common Core compliant, you change the test on the front end. You don't come in afterwards and go, oh, well, the results didn't turn out very well. Let's recalibrate the test and throw out the answers that didn't get correct answers so our test scores look better. And keep in mind that Tennessee law requires that these TCAP scores be used as part of these report cards. The state of Tennessee, or the State Department of Education, can't simply waive state law because of an inconvenient or embarrassing test result. So I think it becomes a legal issue as well. And I would warn all those people at the State Department of Education, do not destroy the original test results. Do not get rid of any of the papers that would show the real results. That starts to move into obstruction of justice, which moves us from race to the top to race to the cop.
Now, Larry, Common Core is increasingly becoming like political kryptonite in this state, particularly for Republican candidates for office. You saw a lot of that in the last couple of weeks. Is this only going to make it worse since this is somehow getting drawn into it by the state officials?
Well, let me start by saying I am a strong supporter of Common Core. I think our curriculum does need to be toughened up. I don't care whether it's national standards or not. We just need to be teaching our children more and better. And the examples Steve is giving, I mean, I hate to be on the same wavelength with Steve politically, even though he's a nice guy sometimes, but it's true. You know, we've had a series of problems. 2 or 3 examples can be given where the state education department has said, well, just ignore the state law while we work on this. No, that's not the way a democracy works. People need to be held accountable. And on Common Core, yes, I know some people, not necessarily political differences, but some people in the state, parents are upset about it. I think we need a better educational program of advising the parents of what Common Core means. At base level, it means we try to teach our children more. If there's subjects and issues that need to be clarified or changed, fine, but we need to move up the quality and quantity of the teaching.
Steve, education leaders and elected officials have said for so long that these TCAP scores are very important. These tests are very important. Teachers worked very hard to do well this year, so did students. Isn't it kind of odd to say, well, never mind now, you don't have to worry about putting it into the final score?
Well, and keep in mind that you've got students that right now are trying to determine whether or not they go to summer school so they can advance to the next grade next year. You've got teachers whose retention and their pay is determined by these TCAP scores. And again, keep in mind, they are recalibrating these scores. Nobody disagrees with the need to raise the standards, teach our kids better. That's not what Common Core is about, at least in terms of the criticism. The problem is, in this case, they are recalibrating scores to make the test scores look better so that they can change the result, not teach kids better.
And this reminds you of what was happening in other states or in other cities like this, is that right?
We saw people go to jail in Atlanta when teachers, to try and meet the test score requirements, were literally erasing questions, erasing answers, or erasing answers to get better scores.
On that level?
Michelle Rhee, who was Kevin Huffman's ex-wife when she was running the schools in Washington, D.C., was in the midst of a similar scandal. The difference is, in those cases, they were erasing the answers. In this case, they're going back and trying to erase the questions.
And now she's running, a national charter school organization, which is active here in Tennessee.
I think the other question is, who's in the room while they're doing the calibration? Pearson owns Park Testing. Pearson owns Common Core. Pearson is the largest textbook manufacturer in the world. They are pushing the textbook system in Tennessee. Are they in the room while this calibration is going on? I want to know not just what they're doing, but who's in the room.
Let's take a break. We're talking with conservative commentator Steve Gill and Larry Woods, who's a Nashville attorney and also Democratic strategist. Back to continue our conversation with them after this break.